Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Month of Trauma here on Reaction and Review. Tonight, guys, I'm checking out a movie from 2013. That movie is Return to Nuke Em High Volume 1. Now, for those of you who've been following me all month, you've seen me cover the Class of Nuke Em High 2 and the Class of Nuke Em High 3, and I hated both of those, which is a crying shame because I love the original Class of Nuke Em High. I'm certainly hoping that this thing is closer to the original Nuke Em High than it is its two god-awful sequels. I do have high hopes on that because this one once more has legendary trauma, director Lloyd Kaufman back in the director's chair instead of just being one of many writers. Another thing that could very well save this is it doesn't have as many writers as Nuke 'Em Highs 2 and 3, which both were sporting a stable of 6 writers for each film. This thing only has 3, and I'm certainly hoping that by cutting back on the number of writers, we could have a far better film here. However, the only way I'm going to find out if this thing is any good at all is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Return to Nuke Em High Volume 1. Okay, the movie's just started, and already a guy has come tons of blood, and his dick has fallen off. It's kind of disgusting, but at least it's a little bit different. Oh my god, guys. Lemmy is playing the President of the United States. And apparently his accent is so thick that they have to subtitle him. You know what, guys? I would totally vote for Lemmy if he was to run for president. I really think that'd be fucking awesome. Wow, that is probably one of the darkest jokes I have heard involving school, shootings. But it was still kind of funny in a fucked up, kind of way. Just goddamn, I was not really expecting that. So, guys, I just saw the origin of the Cretans in this film. Which is kind of stunning because the original Nuke 'Em High didn't need to tell the origin of the Cretans, but frankly, it was sort of a cool origin, and it's kind of a nice change-up. I actually kind of sort of dig it. And we also get to see Kaufman work in his famous car flip shot again. That is so fucking awesome, guys. Did they just make a reference to Trayvon Martin?
No.
Wow, I was not fucking expecting that. That was... Wow, that was kind of fucked up. You know, guys, I honestly was not sure if I was going to like this new gang of Cretans, but I honestly, guys, am digging them more and more as the movie goes on, man. The Cretans are fucking awesome. Well, guys, that was Return to Nuke 'Em High, Volume 1. Let me shut that off. Okay. Wow. Alright. Okay. I do have to make something known. At the very beginning of the movie, we are told straight up that this is a remake of the original Class of Nuke 'Em High. And I was a little bit hesitant when I heard that, because, as many of you know, I am not a fan of remakes. I find them to be probably the laziest goddamn thing any human being could do. Now, I would have had a problem with that, but they have changed so much in here that it really does feel like it's its own story. Not only that, but it's not really a remake because it does totally builds off of the first film. So, similar honestly to how the Toxic Avenger 4 comes right out at the very beginning of it and says that Toxic Avengers 2 and 3 didn't really happen. This movie's kind of doing the same thing with Nuke Em Highs 2 and 3, and that's probably for the absolute best, because Nuke Em Highs 2 and 3 were shit. This thing was actually halfway decent. It is able to tell a very similar story to the first class of Nuke Em High, except we are given far more characters. Our characters are given a hell of a lot more depth. The Cretans are actually given a proper origin instead of just being there. It really, guys, is just trying to tell a far deeper version of the original class of Nuke Em High while making enough changes to make it feel like its own film. And that is awesome. I really do like that. And also, guys, as the title states, this is Return to Nuke Em High Volume 1. If I'm not mistaken, Return to Nuke Em High Volume 2 is scheduled to come out this year. So this thing honestly is only telling about half of the story of the original class of Nuke Em High. That honestly is how much they are fleshing out the story. And I totally understand that also could possibly show it's just padding out the story, but I can guarantee you guys, after seeing this, they are really fleshing out everything. So it makes sense to break it up into two films. What is here, though, with our very deep characters, our very interesting story, we are given a solid film here. I really like how we are given a proper origin story for the Cretans instead of the Cretans just being there. They also are able to do a little bit more with the Cretans because in the original Nuke Em High, the Cretans were just basically a bunch of thugs who used to be Tromaville High's honor role. Here the Cretans were originally were originally Tromaville High's glee fucking squad. So we not only have them as a gang of violent evil douchebags, but they are a gang of violent evil douchebags who like to break out in song. And it makes them almost likable in a weird sort of way. We have tons of characters who are built up, and you are really going to care about them as you are going through. Which also was something that was done well in the first Nuke Em High. So this sort of shows you that they actually have done a lot in terms of writing. I have also in the past been critical of some of Lloyd Kaufman's more recent works because the writing has been incredibly weak and has just been padded with mountains and mountains of titties and gore, and this movie has very little of both, and it wants to focus more on the story. And that honestly is completely beneficial to it. I mean, because guys, it really was just over fucking loading the movies on titties and gore, which kind of ruined Terror Firmer. It almost ruined Toxic Avenger 4, and I noticed actually that he was starting to cut back. Lloyd Kaufman was starting to cut back on that shit when it came to Poultrygeist. He has cut back on it even more. This thing actually feels more fucking like a classic Kaufman film, and I love that because of it. Now, that honestly, guys, is all just writing. The writing here is really good, provided that you're a fan of trauma-style writing, especially Lloyd Kaufman's writing. I do also have to mention the film is similar to a whole lot of his other films, including Nuke Em Highs 2 and 3. There is a whole lot of preaching going on, except most of it is coming from one character, and the character is kind of sort of written up to be a very, very preachy, irritating douche, and if he gets killed off in Return to Nuke Em High Volume 2, I will be so happy. I want to see that character die. I want to see him die in the worst goddamn way, because not only is he ultra preachy, he's incredibly whiny about it. And he's one of the only ones that actually does do a whole lot of preaching. The writing here is also incredibly dark. I do have to warn people that you are going to get references to things such as school shootings and the Trayvon Martin incident. I know that those sorts of things are really sensitive for some people, and you're probably going to be completely turned off by even just the vaguest mention of those things, and this movie's got both of those. So I just sort of want to warn going in, you may happen to find the movie incredibly offensive for all of like 5 seconds worth of dialogue. Excuse me. Anyway, so writing here is really solid, at least solid by Troma standards. What about the acting? Well, the acting also is really solid by Troma standards. Nobody goes into a Troma film expecting it to be worthy of Oscars. Okay, we honestly are not talking about high-end, high-scale acting. The acting here, though, is still really decent, and I kind of enjoyed it. There really was nobody here who turned in, who turned in a poor showing. The closest that we ever come to that is when the actors are forced to basically garble out just mountains and mountains of dialogue, and it's very clumsily written, and it seriously seems as if those few lines were purposely written in a very clumsy fashion. So it basically was something that was forced on the actor, and there's no way in hell that anybody's going to be able to make that kind of dialogue work. Beyond, though, those couple of lines, the acting here is top-notch, solid stuff. I do find it kind of funny. Lemmy, Motorhead's Lemmy, has a very small cameo at the start of the film where he plays the president of the United States, and apparently his accent is so thick that they needed to subtitle his dialogue. Which is funny, because Lemmy has worked in previous Troma films and they didn't have to subtitle it then, but all of a sudden they have to now. It just sort of came off as sort of weird, but I still really liked it. The acting here is solid. Special effects. We, guys, are treated to some of the finest special effects Troma has ever given us in terms of blood, gore, severed fucking penises, and green fucking goo shooting out of people's ears and mouths. Everything here is really good, except there are a couple of moments when the movie tries to go for digital vomit or digital fire, and it doesn't look right. It looks absolutely horrendous. And it makes me kind of wonder why the hell they would do that when Troma is a company that has been known for years to absolutely, lovingly embrace practical effects. The fact that they were going digital for a couple of these shots, stuff honestly that you didn't even have to go digital in the first place on, it just really stands out. It looks awful. And those very, very few shots, like the 2 or 3 very noticeable digital shots that aren't honestly things like people's fucking eyes bursting, which is also done digitally, but I can kind of understand those. It's basically stuff like digital flames or digital vomit. None of that honestly was necessary. It looks awful, and it actually makes a really good movie, and it brings it down a little bit. The sound mix here is really solid. Music. I have to touch on music because I commented when I reviewed Nuke Em High 2 that they had a theme song that started off kind of catchy and was just absolute garbage by the time the movie was done. And then they brought that goddamn song back in Nuke Em High 3. Return to Nuke Em High Volume 1 does not have that song. Instead, we get to hear a couple of times the original Class of Nuke Em High theme, which is fucking amazing because I love that song. You hear it at least twice in the film proper, and I noticed as I was shutting off the movie, it plays over the closing credits too. That is a fantastic song, and I love the fact that they brought the song back. And everything else here, in terms of music, is really good. I really have to give props to our Cretans. Every time that the Cretans break out in song, it's really good. I really liked every time that the Cretans would just sort of, break out into like a 45-second song. I really did like those. Which seriously is good because before they were the Cretans, they were purposely shit. So yeah, guys, music here is really solid. Sound mix here is really good. Our camera work is nice. Our lighting here is perfect. Guys, when all is said and done, am I able to recommend Return to Nuke Em High Volume 1? Oh, hell yes, I can, and I cannot wait for Return to Nuke Em High Volume 2. I want to watch it right the fuck now, but I can't because it's not out yet. And if Lloyd Kaufman is watching this right now, Lloyd, please, I beg you, could you please send me Return to Nuke Em High Volume 2? I will totally cover it for this series. I want to watch it as soon as possible. And if you can send it to me on Blu-ray so that way I can add it to my Blu-ray collection along with this one, I would be ever thankful. Yes, guys, I can totally recommend this. This is probably the best movie that Lloyd Kaufman has made in probably the last 10 years. This thing is fantastic. It is an instant trauma classic. I loved every second of it. Now, guys, Return to Nuke Em High Volume 1 came off the Amazon wish list. The person who sent it in is the person who also sent in Class of Nuke Em Highs 2 and 3, and that is Robert. Robert, I thank you so much, dude. Please, guys, swing on over to Robert's profile over on Amazon. Check out everything that he has written there. Robert, once more, I thank you. I was really hoping for this thing to be good, and my hopes, honestly, were kind of sort of dashed after sitting through Nuke 'Em Highs 2 and 3, but god damn it, this thing here, it bounced back, and it bounced back hard, and it is amazing. Again, I cannot wait for Return to Nuke 'Em High 2. I really want to watch it right the fuck now. However, because I can't, I'm going to need to go and slake my appetites elsewhere. I'm going to go see if I can find any interesting movies on Troma's YouTube channel. Anyway, guys, with that, we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.